Shipra Sonkusare, Professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Coordinator for SDG 8, and moderator for today's session on the theme Sustainable Development Goal 8, which is decent work and economic growth. This session is being live streamed and will be available on YouTube for those who cannot join us. We are here talking about it because our university is working towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Putting job creation at the heart of economic development does not only guarantee the decent work opportunities, but it also gives more robust poverty reducing economic growth. It is as good for the economy as it is good for the people to get jobs and to reduce poverty. And this is the one which drives the sustainable development for the country. So even our university is not behind it, and it's working much harder towards it. Our university has numerous policies for the benefit of its employees. We conduct hackathons, we promote the startup. We also have empowered the people in villages by training them in the skills and helping them to get a job and little decent work. In continuation of our work towards the sustainable development goals, today we are talking about it for goal 8. To enlighten us, we have no one better than Mr. Rajashekaran, lovingly called as Raja, who is a co-founder for the prestigious VShesh, and he has been working towards this goal in his very unique and the best possible way. I welcome you, Mr. Rajashekaran. We will know more about Mr. Rajashekaran in a few minutes. He's with us today to enlighten us on how to break the barriers and create equal job opportunities for persons with disabilities. I welcome you, sir. To encourage and constantly motivate us in achieving these goals, we have with us our beloved Vice Chancellor, Nitte University, Dr. Satish Kumar Bhandari, who is our backbone and always supports us in every good cause. We heartily welcome you, sir. We also have our chairperson, Dr. Professor Smita Hegde, Professor and Deputy Director, Nitte University Center for Science and Education and Research, the ever-inspiring, dynamic, and the driving force behind achieving these sustainable development goals. Whatever we are doing for these goals is only because of your inspiration, madam. Thank you for always inspiring us. I welcome you, ma'am. I welcome all our students, faculty, viewers who are watching us live and will watch us later on YouTube. I request the viewers to click on the feedback link and submit their valuable feedback. Certificate of participation will be given on receipt of the feedback. Now I invite our beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Satish Kumar Bhandari, to give his valuable opening remarks.
Good afternoon. The guest for this webinar, Mr. P. Rajashekaran, the co-founder of VShesh, Professor Dr. Smita Hegde, Professor and Deputy Director of our Nitte University Center for Science and Education, the person who is responsible for this webinar on Sustainable Development Goals lecture series, SDG 8, Dr. Shipra Sonkusare, Professor in Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and all the viewers and the people who are participating in this webinar. It's my privilege to be part of this webinar conducted by the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I understand the resource person, P. Rajashekaran, who is the co-founder of VShesh, an impact enterprise that he co-founded with Shashank Avasthi in the year 2008, is doing a wonderful work. I understand VShesh is assisting persons with disabilities by providing training and placement services to access quality jobs, matching their talent and aspiration. Congratulations, Rajashekaran, for doing this wonderful societal help, and God may bless you with the abundant future. Lot of laurels will follow you. I wish you all the best for doing this wonderful work. I deem it my privilege to participate in this webinar since it involves the sustainable development goals, because our university is well placed in SDG. I am very glad to tell you that we were one among the 300 best universities in Times Higher Education Impact ranking. In the goal 3, we were within 100, and goal 4 and 5, we were within 200. It's a really credible achievement for the university. As you all know, according to an estimate by WHO, globally around 15% of the population live with some form of disability, while over 80% among them belong to low and middle income countries. Coming to India, it has been estimated that 1.36 billion residents they live with some form of disability. That almost accounts to 2.2% of the population, a quite substantial number. In today's progressive era, where integration and inclusion of all people is emphasized as a gateway towards sustainable development, measures for the health and well-being of people with disability is becoming more indispensable. According to United Nations Human Rights Chief Navi Pillai, work carries no less meaning to persons with disabilities. The millions of persons with disabilities around the world who continue to be denied their right to work remain excluded from the opportunities to realize themselves and to make a meaningful contribution to the economic, social, and cultural development of their communities. To meet this objective, countries and industries must protect labor rights and promote safe and secure working environment for all workers, including persons with the disability. I'm happy to inform you that, as I said earlier, Nitte is in the forefront of taking care of their employees, including the disabled employees. I understand our HR policies are very proactive for the labor force, and also we have got policies for disabled people. And I understand today's webinar is concentrating on Sustainable Development Goal 8, where the objective is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, including for persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value. And this is the theme of the theme of the Goal 8. I am glad that the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, led by Dr. Shipra extremely sorry for pronouncing wrongly. Dr. Shipra, she is leading this particular webinar. Congratulations to you for organizing this webinar. I wish great success, and I hope all the participants will have very wonderful, fruitful deliberation. And I think there must be some interaction with the faculty, Mr. P. Rajashekaran. It's time to raise awareness and advocate for the rights of people with disabilities and promote their acceptance and inclusion around the world at local, regional, national, and international level. As a society, we should accept that people of different abilities and our responsibility make them inclusive in the development of the world. It is a social responsibility to help people with disabilities to live independent and full lives, and it becomes easier to recognize and address challenges that people with disabilities experience. The only way to fulfill this goal is through international cooperation and involvement of all the stakeholders. I hope this webinar will create awareness about the problems faced by the disabled people, and will be able to break the barrier of difficult access to the persons with disabilities. Thank you, Rajashekaran, once again for participating in this webinar. I invite you to come physically to the university and sometime in the future and address our student community and faculty. I wish once again great time during this webinar. I wish you all the best. May God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your ever encouraging words, which keep us moving. I'm sure we are going to march even faster with your encouragement. Now I request our lovely chairperson, Professor Dr. Smita Hegde, to introduce our speaker, Mr. Rajshekharan.
A very good afternoon to one and all. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, it is always a pleasure to listen to you. So meaningful and so inclusive. Thank you so much for giving us such a conducive atmosphere to grow personally.
Madam, you are not audible.
Yes. It's indeed a pleasure to work in Nitte University. I also to congratulate Shipra ma'am for going out of her way, and she really works in any job that's given. Can you can you
No, madam, we are not able to hear you clearly.
Are you able to hear? Are you able to hear me?
No, madam, we are not able to hear you. I think there's some problem with the audio. Shall I introduce Mr. Rajshekharan then? Okay, I think Smita madam.
Hear me?
Yes, ma'am. No, madam, not clearly. It's breaking. The voice is breaking.
Me.
No, madam, I think there's some internet connectivity
Hello?
issue. I think, yes, ma'am.
Are you able to hear me?
No, it's breaking in between, madam. I think you're logged in from two sides. Yeah.
Must be.
No, madam, not
Please.
going, not hearing. I think there's some problem with Smita madam's audio system there. Okay, I think I'll start with introducing Mr. Rajshekharan. We lovingly call him Raja. He's co-founder of V-Shesh. It's an impact enterprise that he co-founded together with another friend of his in 2008, Mr. Shashank Awasthi. His prior experience is as business and development sector practitioner with over more than 25 years of experience in incubating and leading assignments in public and private sector. Raja is an expert member of national and state level committees working in groups on disability policy. He's part of the founding team of the Wheelchair Basketball Federation of India and is a governing council member in Vidyasagar Special School. Raja is an engineer, MBA from Mumbai, as well as MS Public Policy from Carnegie Mellon University, USA. Vishesh works with employers offering a range of support services to progress disability inclusion at workplace. His team is of 45 members and is a picture of diversity with 15 women and 13 persons with disability, and the team being able to converse in 15 different languages. Vishesh's work in disability inclusion has won several recognitions, and the most prestigious one is the one in 2016, the National Award from the President of India for Best Placement Agency for Persons with Disability. But I also want to say that this is very much less than what all his achievements are. I know him from our school days, and he has always been the topper and always been an achiever. The topper as when he went for engineering to Bombay, a topper in his MBA, as well as when he went for MS to US. This is much less than whatever I read was much less than what he actually is. He has many more global awards, global listing. He has a clientele all over the world, including very, very big companies like IBM, Cognizant, Accenture, with his selfless dedication towards his service. And many more things I am not able to mention, and many more companies which are his clients are still not listed in my introduction to him. Now I request Mr. Rajshekharan to deliver the talk we all are waiting for. Over to you, Mr. Raja, or Raja as we call him.
Thanks. First of all, thanks, Smita, Shipraf, my dear friend here. He's my go-to person whenever I have any form of question or clarity on medical field. So thanks again for your warm introduction here. Thanks a lot for Honorable Vice Chancellor for your warm words and setting the context. Thanks a lot, Dr. Smita. Though we could not have the connectivity, but from the warmth of your tone, we could understand where you're coming from. So thanks again for this warm welcome and warm reception. I almost feel I'm at your university, but I am sure I will take this invitation of the Vice Chancellor and hopefully be there in person. Let me first greet you all in sign language. This is good afternoon. Sun is good and sun on your head. So that's called good afternoon in sign language. Over 70 million people all over the world use sign language as a mode of communication. And the World Deaf Federation for the last week of September, the 19th to 25th week, is commemorated all over the world as International Week of the Deaf People, with 23rd being the International Day of Sign Languages, as a mark of respect and solidarity towards the deaf community, which has a unique way of communicating using signs. So I thought I'll greet you on sign language. I go with the pronouns he, his, and him. I'm visually describing myself, for audience who may not be able to see me. I'm wearing a pink shirt. I'm also sporting what I call as a beard or a mustache, which is still not well groomed enough to be called a mustache or a beard. I'm not wearing specs. I have a lot of my hair continues to be black, though I'm not that young anymore. That's visually describing here, sir, myself here. And for all the introduction that you have received, that you would have heard about us and my organization Vishesh, all of us at Vishesh continue to be permanent students on this topic of inclusion for persons with disabilities. On one hand, we interact with individuals across the spectrum, hearing, vision, mobility, specific learning disabilities, etc. On the other hand, we work with institutions and organizations such as yours, learn from the wealth of information, learn from the challenges that our clients actually throw at us. And each of those is what we are able, with each of them, what Professor and Dr. the Vice Chancellor, Honorable Vice Chancellor said, the dignity to have equal opportunity to work, which is the topic for today, which is what they're trying to do on a day-to-day basis as an enterprise to continue our own existence. With that, I've actually created a small deck for us all to review what this topic is all about. I'll take you through this deck, and we'll have some questions through the session and progress, understand a little bit more about this whole construct of disability inclusion in the society and in workplace. Okay. So start with this quote from Sir Shri Rabindranath Tagore, that problem is not about how to wipe out the differences. Differences are inevitable, inherent part of any society, but how to unite and progress with the differences intact. We do not want to take away the differences. They are going to be there. They are inevitable. How do we unite and progress with those differences? I'll start with sharing, one of my very dear friends, Madhavi Lata. She was born with a condition because of polio. Her lower limbs were affected. So it's a story of her being born in a small village in Andhra Pradesh with very limited access and huge mobility. I'm just sharing the story from her, coming from a small village to becoming a vice president in a large bank and having won Paralympic swimming gold medals. So, but even for her in her formative years, from getting to school, getting access to school, where her parents had to physically carry her to a school every day and bring her out because facilities were not accessible. And then after having acquired very, very good, standing extremely well in her academics and being a kind of a school topper and being a university lead gold medalist, she still had to take a typing test so that she can appear for a bank PO exam, or though she wanted to be a lead researcher and a mathematician, there was really no jobs for her at that point in time. They said, okay, take typing, learn typing. You can get a job as a clerk. And that is where she got into a bank. When she later on realized, when she got into a bank, that her skills were noticed, that she has a potential to become a manager and contribute more to the society. Again, when she gets to a workplace, huge barriers at workplace, both attitudinal and physical barriers. Then finally, in inclusion. So that is the journey of a person who, typically a person with disability, you can replace her with most anyone, and you would see barriers all around our ecosystem. So I'm just posing this quick question here. If you have, I don't think we have access to chat box. So just wanted to first talk to you about what is it as a population that we are talking. What is the population segment we are talking about? We're talking about 26 million people living in this condition in India. The Vice Chancellor mentioned about 15% of the world population. So that is the ILO data that is presented. But in India, we are talking about a self-declared number. This is a 2011, as per 2011 census, of 26 million or 2.6 crore, which is also significantly understated. I'm saying that's why I use the word self-declared. They're significantly underrepresented because it is, of course, the data is itself outdated. We don't have the 2020 census yet. Two, stigma around disability. People don't want to talk about it. Enumerators come, but families don't want to disclose. The individual doesn't want to disclose. And then the enumeration also has its own sets of challenges. Certain conditions like invisible, conditions like mental health, the families don't want to talk about it. So again, they go undisclosed. And finally, when the census was done, it was based on a 1995 law where many conditions, learning disabilities, autism, conditions like thalassemia, sickle cell, hemophilia, which are blood disorders, certain chronic neurological conditions were not even included. If you put all of that, we are talking about a population of 80 million or 8 crore, bigger than the population of Karnataka or Tamil Nadu as a state. We are also talking bigger than UK and France as a country. So it's a huge number that we are talking about, like the Vice Chancellor pointed out in the opening address. We also, if it's a developed country like US, also has 12.5% people as per data from Center for Disease Control, CDC. 61 million people in US live with one or other form of disability. And also, another important statistic is only 1 in 5 among persons with disability. Only 1 in 5 are born with an impairment. The rest 4 acquire an impairment over their lifetime. Okay, the rest 4 acquire an impairment over the lifetime. So everyone is just one incident, one episode away from acquiring an impairment and being a person with disability. So some substance of what I wanted to say here is disability is an inherent part of human diversity. Whatever development cycle you are, it is going to be there. It impacts all of us, and it is not about us versus them. It is about us, as the data has to prove, as all the discourse on social economic cycle have to when we talk about. If this number is so huge, I would like to just put a question across here. Would like your thoughts. Whoever can. We rarely come across people with disabilities in our daily lives. Any thoughts here? Anybody would like to express either via chat or Shipra, Professor, anyone would like to say why do we rarely come across? Any thoughts?
I think we enter a place where people who are only people who do not have disabilities are taken. Since all our surroundings are basically such an organization where people only without disabilities can enter.
Right. Great point. So the first point that Shipra made was physical infrastructure is simply not accessible. As you can see in this picture, you have a slope, which is not a ramp. It is no way a person can independently access or get into the facility. So not all slopes are ramps. You have to have it in an appropriate dimension. Walk out of your homes. Your streets are not paved. If you have to get into a bus, there are 3 steps into getting into a bus. Impossible for a crutch user or a wheelchair user to independently access, or even with some form of prosthetic, independently access the bus. Or you get down from the bus and get onto a footpath. Even there, we don't have appropriate curb cut. So tons of obstacles all along the path. So all forms of physical infrastructure totally inaccessible. And information issue. If a blind person has to cross a signal, most of the signals are color, only discriminated by color, red, green, and yellow. If very impossible for a blind person to distinguish when the signal is on and when it is off, first to enable my crossing the road. With simple voice enablement, which is happening now in cities, and most international cities do have voice enabled signals, it becomes accessible. If a blind person comes to a hospital and wants a registration form in larger font or in an alternate way, not so easy to get that, or not in a hospital, even in a court, not so easy to get that. Simple measures are simply not available. I have to go from Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, I go to say France and do business. I'll get a voice from a Tamil or a Kannada or a Hindi, Marathi translator to Marathi to French translator pretty easily and do business in France. But for a deaf person, we talked about sign language, to have an interaction with a doctor, to share personal information in a confidential manner, getting access to a sign language interpreter, very, very difficult. For 20 odd million people who use sign language today, there are about 400, only 400 interpreters. So just not possible. Huge information barriers. We have physical barriers, we have information barriers, and most importantly, attitudinal barriers, the preconceived notions, the myths, the stereotypes, the judgment that we all carry, which come in the way of persons, because of which we rarely come across persons with disabilities in our daily lives. On that note, I'd like to go a little deeper and sorry, Shipra, I'm allowed to ask you this question. I've been using these terms, disability and impairment, alternatively, juxtaposing this and using it. I think, what do you think? Are these two terms the same? What do you think is the difference between disability and impairment?
I think impairment, when we use the word impairment, we assume that person is impaired to do any activities for a long time. When I say disabled, when I'm sick, I'm disabled for some time. I'm disabled to do something when I'm sick or when I'm ill. So that might be short term.
Disability is short term, whereas impairment is long term. Okay. That is some direction that you're giving, right?
And disability means it might not be seen by others. As I said, I'm sick having fever at home, sick to run, sick
right.
enough. So that is also disability. I'm disabled for some time. So that is not visible to people. And people think I'm normal, but only I understand that I'm not able to do certain things.
So I'm nodding in acknowledgement of some of the thoughts that Shipra brought out in a response. One is about tenure, one is about the invisible nature of the condition, etc. But let me explain the construct, which is basically the enshrined in the principles of UN, CRPD, and etc. Let me explain through a graphic, okay? This will make us very, very clear when we talk about this topic, so that we are able to deal with this situation in our daily lives, in our work, etc. So first, now I'm showing you a picture of a person who has a lower limb impairment, wanting to board a train in any of the Indian railway stations. There's a lot of work going on, but still there's no level boarding available. So the person to independently board the train in a railway station is just not possible, right? So but the same person, I don't have the picture of the same person, unfortunately, but the same person goes to London or any of the developed countries, or even our own metros in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, etc. We will get a level boarding or a ramped access into a public transportation. Okay, it does not feel disabled in that society, in that environment. So, Shipra, what exactly is the disability created here by?
I think it is basically, as you said, places are unable to do something in a certain place. So it changes from place to place. It changes from conditions to conditions available to us.
Yes, by the society, by the environmental conditions. So that, in fact, disability is created by the environment. So impairment is individual. It is something most of us may deal with in our own way. For example, Shipra is wearing a spec. So Shipra might have had some form of vision impairment, so she's not able to see the board in her class, so would have got to a doctor, got her eyes tested from an ophthalmologist, and walked into an eye store and procured a spectacle, and is able to participate as equal like every other sighted person in the society. So it is not a barrier. But when that impairment, which is personal, everyone deals it within their own way, but when that impairment it's some of the barriers in the society, and which is in this case a physical barrier, that is when a disability situation is created. So impairment is personal to the individual, whereas disability is a societal construct created by environmental and social factors. Even in this particular case, the individual gets into a public transportation, and if everybody starts staring at that individual from a sense of pity or hey, why are you here, to being overly helpful, again you are making the person uncomfortable, and you're creating a barrier for that person to participate as equals. So disabilities, so impairment is personal to the individual, but when that impairment interacts with the societal barriers, physical information, and most important attitudinal barriers, creates what we see as a disability situation. So disability is a social construct, whereas impairment is an individual construct. In fact, that is the very definition as per the UN Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability, UNCRPD, and the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, that persons with disabilities include people who have long-term physical, intellectual, or sensory impairment. But it does not stop there. They have long-term impairments, yes, but that is not what is disability. Which in interaction with these various societal barriers impairs or hinders their full and effective participation in society. Yes. Does that make sense, Shipra?
Yeah. So disability is relative, whereas impairment is constant. That's how I understand.
Yes, disability is relative. Disability is dynamic, whereas
Yes.
impairment is something to the individual. Disability is dynamic situation created. And most importantly, for us as individuals, leaders, or members of the society, what we really have to think about is barriers. If you really see, all we have to think about is, the person has a situation and deals with in its own way. Yes, medical situation, we'll go to a doctor. Therapy, I do something. I cope with it in our own way. I do a hack and I cope with it. That's all. Every person deals with their situation in their own way. But that is not what we really need to think about. All we really need to think about from an inclusion perspective is, what are the barriers, invisible versus visible barriers, that the individual has to participate as equal. So disability brings the barrier to the forefront. This whole thing is about putting the accountability on us as citizens or leaders or institutions to see those barriers are removed. Individual case impairment, people will deal with it in their own way. And opposite of ability is not disability. A lot of time we get confused about these two terms. Opposite of ability is inability, whereas disability is a situation created by the society. Okay, that's why the term also persons with disability. I will move ahead on this. I'll just quickly talk to you about what is important to understand. What is equal opportunity and equal treatment? For example, in this picture, you would have seen all of this picture many times. 3 people varying heights. Third, the person with the shorter stature could also be a person who is a wheelchair user, does not get the equal opportunity to see the game, though the treatment is equal. So how do we move to a situation where everybody gets equal opportunity? By what we call as reasonable accommodation. You either shuffle the desks that are put so that the person who's a short stature overcomes the height disadvantage, or and is able to view the game, or remove the opaque barrier and put a wire mesh or a glass so that everybody gets like a universal design. Move to what we say as equity. So that is equity, whereas equality does not always lead to what we see as equal opportunity. So in fact, I'll also give you an example of my interaction about 6-7 years with the Postal Service Board, who do these tests to select the first entry level postal assistant or a postal clerk. So they I was talking to them, and he said, how do we conduct these tests? I was basically curious how do persons with disabilities appear for these tests, etc. Said we have advertisement, national advertisement in print, in local print as well as national print. We have the same time allocation. It's a 2-hour test, 1.5-hour test. It's a paper and pen test. So then I asked, how does a blind person take this test? No. We don't discriminate. Everybody is treated equally here. We do not discriminate. It is the same. But the same treatment does not, as you can very, very clearly see, it becomes a barrier for a blind person to even know about the test. So you got to, right from the advertisement and outreach, got to advertise in radio and FM and other media, give the advertisements, your job postings, etc., should be given to disabled organizations, blind association, deaf associations, specialized agencies. Giving additional time to write an exam, is no favor being done. It is just equal opportunity. Person who is using a scribe to write an exam, if I'm a blind person and I use a scribe, or if I'm a person with cerebral palsy or muscular dystrophy and have fine motor skills are not there, so I may take a little longer to type, or may not have, I type with one finger, so I need a scribe. So to type out paper, I may take more time. So giving additional time, no favor. Again, similarly for dyslexia, reading take longer time to read a paragraph. So giving that additional time, no favor being done. When we can take our specs and write an exam, why not allow people to bring their magnifying devices or any other devices to come and attempt the test? So it is simply, all of this is what we call as equal opportunity. Equal opportunity is simply a preceding condition in order to secure so that people have same kind of level playing field when they do whatever it is. It's coming to write an exam, or when they get a job to perform whatever is the responsibilities of the work. But after that is secured, we got to show a semblance of equality in our treatment. That is not ad hoc basis reducing the cutoff scores. Say, okay, for persons with disabilities, the cutoff score is lowered. That may not be fair. That may hurt the dignity of the individual. You got to be respectful and say, yeah, on a case-to-case basis, it may be required, because we know that a person has a disability. There is a societal challenge in acquiring access to education and school. So we need to deal with it in a sensitive way, in an affirmative way. But an ad hoc reduction may not be the right way. So fundamentally, equal opportunity is a preceding condition to secure, even talk about equal treatment. And even after equal treatment, one has to look at more than what you call as affirmative actions in order to ensure there is equity in access. Shipra, sorry, I have to ask you these questions again and again.
No, yeah, you can.
I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Is this obvious if person has an impairment? What do you think?
No, I think mental impairment might not be visible. So I might not be able to know somebody is impaired mentally also.
So in how many percentage, just taking a guess among persons, if you look at the population, person with disabilities, in what percentage it is obvious and what percentage it is not? I've given 2 and 3 as choice here. Less than 25, it is obvious, or more than 20?
No, I think it is obvious in less than 25 only.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So first of all, less than 25, I mean, around 26-30% cases are obvious. Visible markers are there is a deformity. The person has is a wheelchair user, or there is using an aid. Yes, this is in rest of the cases, 75% of the cases. Visibly there is no marker. In Ranbir acted as a deaf person in Barfi. No way you could, by seeing the person, we can say, a lot of deaf people use sign language, cannot just see the person. Social interactions, reduced social interactions, like a condition which was depicted in Tari Zabin Per for Ishan, dyslexia or autism, difficult to distinguish, apparently. I'm also showing some pictures of Bill Clinton as a hearing aid. It's in the canal, hard of hearing person. Nobody can know. Abhishek Bachchan or Richard Branson, they had dyslexia, learning disability. Psychosocial conditions like Shipra mentioned, no way one can talk about. So fundamentally, Even in certain physical limitations, certain conditions lead to physical limitations. For example, multiple sclerosis, MS, might lead because of severe fatigue. The person may be severely constrained, even accessing, doing basic work, and we need wheelchair during when the fatigue is very, very severe. But there is no apparent deformity when you see the person. So all of these conditions do have, lead to what we call as basically we can't see, judge. We can't trust our own senses, about what if a person has a visible or an invisible condition. In fact, in case of invisible conditions, we got to be even more careful. The misjudgments, misconceptions can be even more pronounced. For example, if you are conducting an interview and you want to select a strong candidate in, say, coding, and there is a person who comes and he doesn't make eye contact. This person with autism in the interview doesn't make eye contact, appears to speak in single syllables, does not smile and reciprocate. The interviewer may misjudge, thinking that, hey, this person is not so interested in the job. He does not show the energy and enthusiasm, may not be a good culture fit, may not work with this team. And we make a wrong decision and not give otherwise a chance for a potentially high potential, for a highly qualified individual who could contribute to the organization. So again, got to be very careful with our judgments in case of invisible conditions. Okay, Smita, Shipra, another question for you here. We are talking about an individual here who has a bilateral upper limb amputee. He's a bilateral upper limb deformity, so no limbs at all. He is applied for a role which requires a lot of desktop working. Okay, you need say he's applied for a role here. You need someone to enter data, and he says, I can do data and I know accounting. So he's applied to your office as a gynecologist's office, saying that I want a job. So if his name is, say, Vicky, his name is Ajay. Ajay applies to you, and how would you? What would you do if you are the hiring manager? How do you go about interacting with?
I think also in his experience, he says that he has done a coaching for swimming,
yes,
and that means he's expert in that.
Right.
He's an expert swimmer, and he can definitely coach. I think that is his.
But his income is irregular, so he wants a full-time job. He's struggling for his livelihood, and you have a job in as a data entry and managing account in your office. So he's applied for that. How would you? What would you do?
I would like to ask him, how does he normally want to do his job? If he has thought of applying for this job.
Perfect. I think that's what the perfect answer here. That's visual claps to Shipra. So essentially, what happens in most of you when we see a condition, this actually happens in a real life. We applied when an organization says we are okay with mobility and orthopedic. We are not ready for vision. Please send us we have a role banking process, and we send this candidate to that and says no. This requires a lot of data entry and typing. Lower limb is fine, not upper limb. No. So then we ask the recruiter, what do you want? You want limbs or you want typing? What is it really is required? He said, no, typing. And why are you really asking all of these questions? You want typing. What do you do for assessing the typing? He says, we do a typing test. So why don't you ask, like Shipra said, what support you need to take the typing test? So then the person took a typing test, actually cleared, and he's working now for the 6 years. He got a promotion as well. So fundamentally, the point that I wanted to drive home here, though Shipra didn't responded in a different way, is that we are all, most of us as human beings are biased. We see a person without arms, we think the person will not be able to type. We see blind people, they think that how does a blind person interact with the computer? Because of lack of exposure and the way our brain, I don't have to talk to doctors about this, but you know best about how it works. Brain is going to be, there is a cognition, there is a conscious bias which we all have because of the way we interact and how the brain processes information based on past trends, we are bound to be biased. So best for us to be very objective. First of all, recognize we all will be biased. Second is to be objective in what we want. This is the skill that is required for the job. Does this individual have matching skills or the potential to acquire doing this? And what is the support you need to execute those skills? Accordingly, test the person for the skills. And if the person has the skill or has the potential, go ahead and hire and then provide accommodations. Like in this case, provide a low floor keyboard. So a lot of times, this person does not type. We have to acquire a speech-to-text software that has to be tested by the technology division, and we don't know whether it will come. So we generally tend to not go ahead, and we make assume things. So don't assume and make decisions on behalf of another person. Bias leads to stereotype, leads to ultimately lack of access and to equal opportunity, which is basically discrimination. If we recognize bias, we are able to ask the right questions, be objective, and provide what we see as equal opportunity, and provide what we leading to an inclusive situation. If you meet a person, first and foremost, Shipra, what is the first and foremost thing that you do when you meet a person with disability? Assume the person is not in distress. Immediately provide help or ask the person of a disability, avoid eye contact, talk to the caregiver.
No, I think I would like to treat that person as like any other person. Unless he asks for help, I would definitely immediately provide help. Otherwise, I will not even look down upon them, or I would be aware of the disability. But at the same time, if they need help, yes, I will definitely go and help them. But I would like to treat them like any other person. I don't want to make them feel that they are different from the rest of the people.
Is it fine to say see you to a blind person?
People like that. I think, yes, I think yes. See you doesn't mean see you with eyes. See you can mean just be in contact with.
Right. Excellent. Absolutely 100 on 100 here. First tip here on interacting with persons with disabilities is don't assume help is needed. See a person with disability wherever. Of course, when the person is in distress, about to fall, we, as human nature, we will quickly get into this situation and help the person. But don't assume help is needed. Always ask before extending help, like Shipra mentioned. Also, best to ask how you would like to be helped. Should I push your wheelchair, or should I give my arm if it's a blind person? Ask how the person would like to be helped, and don't judge the person. May say, no, I don't want. It's fine. I don't. Then don't judge. Oh, this person is so severe impairment, but still, is refusing help. I don't know what he thinks of himself or herself. Don't judge, and so don't assume. Always ask, don't judge. If you keep these three in mind, in most situations, you would be have a very, very comfortable interaction. Be respectful of the devices people use, wheelchair, cane, etc. are part and parcel of the individual's extension of the body. So be respectful. Do not move it around with their perspective, without their consent. Do not play with it, etc. It is be what we respectful to the person. Even with the people with severe conditions, sometimes we may not have interacted. We may have certain feel awkward to talk, but just put that aside and talk to the person. And perfectly fine, like Shipra said, using common expressions like see you to a blind person is perfectly fine. I have a friend who is fully blind. He says a lot of times when we are sitting in a group, suddenly one person will say, let's go see a movie, and then correct and say, let's go hear a movie, making it even more awkward for that individual. So remember the strengths they face, and let's not be be sympathetic. Sympathy is an emotion where our sense of what we can do potentially. The emotions overcome us. And the bond is broken. We start thinking, oh God, why is this so? Why are things so cruel? It should not happen. Why is this happening? And all of those. We stop doing the job that they're supposed to do. And I know, as doctors, you would have several times incurred in your daily lives these situations, and understand the challenges. Try to move around the strengths and see what you can do so as to work on this. On this note, let me stop talking and I'll be playing a video on some of the interaction etiquettes when it comes to interaction. Shipra, I'm just sharing a video. It's a quick 3-minute video on how to interact with persons with disabilities.
Good morning, Bob.
Sound is coming through, Shipra?
Good morning there. Man. Morning, Alice!
There's no need to be awkward. Poor Bob. Like so many of us, he just doesn't know how to interact with people with disabilities.
It's pretty easy, really. People with disabilities are people first.
We need the same things that every person needs, like respect.
Good morning, everyone.
Attention!
Okay. Maybe we need to be more specific.
The easiest way to show respect is to focus on the person, not the disability. It's okay. You'll get the hang of it.
One easy way to focus on the person is to watch the person signing and not their interpreter.
Or their companion.
It's really cool that you'd like to help, but do us both a favor and please ask me first. What you think might be helping?
I got you.
Wait, ah! Oh no, might actually not.
If you'd like to offer me help, let me hold on to your elbow. Don't take mine.
Hey, would you like to take my arm?
Sure.
Assistive devices help us to live our lives. They're really important and really personal.
Grabbing them only makes it weird for everyone.
What? Please only touch our devices and service animals if we've given you permission. And don't take it personally if I ask you not to. Remember that my service animal helps me all the time. Neither of us would like it if we were separated.
Remember, we make our own decisions. We sign documents, vote, volunteer, work, and pay taxes.
We get married.
So don't address me just because I have a great smile.
Just because I'm blind.
May I help you?
Does not mean I'm deaf.
Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean I'm blind.
And just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't sweep you off your feet.
So take a deep breath, relax. We don't bite.
Unless we're really hungry.
Hello there, ladies. How are you?
Hello. And if you're not sure what to do, just ask.
Hi, would you still like to see a menu?
No thanks, but can you please read it to me?
Sure, definitely.
Just treat us the way you would want to be treated, and we'll all be okay.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Alice.
Morning.
Awkward no more.
So like you all saw in this video, some quick tips on, ask before help, how the person should be helped, and don't assume and talk to the person. Don't assume what a person needs or doesn't need. Okay. I proceed to the last few sections and then we'll be ending. So quick tips on in self, some of the respectful language that one has to follow. You don't say suffers from a depression or cerebral palsy. We just say Akbar, for example, has a depression or a cerebral palsy, because suffering is judgmental. We how are we supposed to take a call on somebody is suffering? It's okay. Ramesh is handicapped or handicapped, crippled. These are all outdated terms. We just say Ramesh has a disability. Nobody is wheelchair bound. We don't call people spectacle bound, right? So we say it's a wheelchair user. So a lot of cases, the wheelchair is a source of, is an identity. It's a proud mobility device that a person has. So can't say bound. Nobody is tied to a wheelchair. We have a PWD toilet, PWD parking, again avoided, we say accessible toilet. Again, don't refer to people as normal. We just say if people are non-disabled. If I'm saying this person is normal, that means a person with disability is not normal. We just say a person is non-disabled. And no specially abled, differently abled, even those terms are euphemism. It is just, if a person wants to be called differently abled or specially abled, fine. But if as a community, we don't label, if on that note, if Virat Kohli or Surya Kumar Yadav are more differently abled people, but we don't call them, because they, so basically we just say it's a person with disability. As we saw, people are disabled by the society. And there is also, two forms, either person first language, person with autism, person with disability, vision disability, or etc., or identity. For a lot of people, even being a disabled person is an identity like any other identity, like race or color or from which region, etc. So in fact, in US, July is entirely celebrated as a disability pride month. We're proud to be disabled people. So we got to be respectful of that. Even identity first is fine in case of people who already recognize their identity. Finally, not to be paternalistic or judgmental. Even words like you are inspiring can be, in this case of interaction between Catherine and Kamla, not just regular interaction, they're not thick friends, etc. Kamla tells Catherine, "Wow, Catherine, amazing to know you live and travel by yourself. You're really inspiring." Even a positive sounding word, inspiring, can be offensive for a person with disability, because you're coming and going is a routine thing. Why are you telling me? Everyone is coming and going. You don't tell everyone that you're inspiring. And you may be inspired, that is fine. But when you tell someone, there is an impact. Even the best of intent, there is impact on the listener. It might be, hearing this word inspiring again and again and again can potentially be offensive. So best to stay safe. You can be feeling inspired. Let us not be judgmental or paternalistic in what we say. Even words like inspiring, courageous, hero for day-to-day tasks is to be avoided. Please try, you will surely succeed. Again, it may seem motivational, but not best to avoid. You are a disabled person, you are no less than any other person. That means disabled person is less. So that is again to be avoided. Sorry to know, that may again be judgmental. Sorry to know you're suffering. All of these are judgment. Totally avoid. These are specifically not respectful language. So key messages as we come to a close, and before I hand over to Shipra here, let's focus on the ability. Person with disability, like everyone else, needs equal opportunity. Disability is not always visible. Never assume what a person would need, and be respectful. Don't take decisions on behalf of anybody else. Recognize we all have biases. It is human nature to be biased. And all that we have to be mindful of is the barriers, and to provide for support and accommodation, which is a basic right, like the Vice Chancellor spoke about in his when he opened up the session. Communication is easy. Please remember those tips. Respectful language, and it is not as hard as one can think. It is not a medical condition. Yes, for medical practitioners, there is a medical dimension, but the concept of disability is a social construct, because a consequence of societal barriers, and we have in us to be an opportunity. Like in this picture, we are seeing a lot of children wanting to enter a school, and the child on a wheelchair tells and the school is covered with snow, full of snow, tells the attendant, please shovel the ramp for me. And the school attendant says, so many children are waiting, let me shovel the stairs. The child in the wheelchair says, if you shovel the ramp, we all can get it. So clearing the path for a person with disability is like clearing the path for more and more people. It is simply better HR practice, simply better organizational practice, and simply better paves the way for an inclusive society. With that, I hand it back to Shilpa. I know I've exhausted all the time. If I have more questions, I'm more than happy to address those questions. Back to you, Shilpa.
Yeah, thank you, Raja, for telling us how to behave in a society with people with disabilities. Actually, what you said was really right. Normally the behavior of the people towards persons with a disability is really sympathetic, but that should not be the case. We should treat them as we want to be treated, like any other person or any other human being. And even words like inspiration, you're such a big inspiration, you're a hero, as you said, might hurt or might hit on them. That is, I completely agree with you. And really, I thank you to tell us, to enlighten us on how we should be behaving with people with disabilities. And I would like to ask you, what as a university, what can we do to empower such people?
Right. Great, good question here, Shipra. I would talk about a model which most organizations follow. I mean, this model is not from Vishesh. It's come from a study by Accenture Consulting of 100 companies which have progressed, institutions which have progressed in their journey. So there are 4 things, 4 parameters as an institution can do. And this is the 4E model. A is to enable. First is E is enable, which means create, like the Chancellor said, have your equal opportunity policies in place, have it examined by people with disabilities also. And not only the policy statement, which should be widely disseminated, but also all the underlying, recruitment framework, your employee benefit, your transportation, many such underlying HR policies would be there. Everything has to be looked at from a disability equality and, if possible, equity. And enabling means looking also at your infrastructure, both physical as well as digital infrastructure. That is enable. The second is engage, to engage team and staff at the organization so that all that I shared today there's a culture shift, and the disability is diverse, understanding these various dimensions, understanding invisible conditions, invisible barriers. So there has to be an element of sensitivity and a culture change. While you can you can improve the infrastructure, you need people to also be included. Inclusion is not only the vice chancellors or the leadership's own agenda. It has to be an agenda which everyone embraces. So I would say engage is the second, where you need sensitization, you need culture change workshops, etc. The third dimension is about employment. Relook at the selection processes. A lot of times our selection processes are like a funnel. We have to select from 5 best, you select 1. No, here the pool is very limited. Every person deserves a chance. We got to reduce the chance of leaving out a otherwise eligible candidate because of our filtering approach. So look at your conventional selection process so that we are able to select everyone. You may need to do work trials. We may need to do train and hire models, etc., to get more people with disabilities come into the institution. And finally, is about empower. Even after doing all of this, you still may not be, getting people, or even if you get people, you need to do more, which is through train and hire models, so that this is the skill sets that we need. Okay, let me do a para. I can't get a full-time professional. Can I train them for a short period, get them as a para staff, and then as they put their skills to practice, they will scale up. So, or mentorship. Senior people can do. Mentor someone as they come, because there's people with disabilities also come from weaker socioeconomic backgrounds, so they may have challenges to navigating in organizational ecosystem. So mentorships can help. So this 4E model, enable, engage, employ, and empower is what I would say. And each of this you can develop a very simple matrix and see how the institution is progressing. Hope that gives you some sense of direction, Shipra.
Yeah, sure. That e-model is something which I'm hearing for the first time now. Thank you so much for telling us. And another question is like little personal. I just want to know, you're doing so well in US, and what suddenly happened? What got into your mind and you thought of doing something so unique, which normally people don't think of?
Oh, okay. So why? I mean, for us and for me and most of us, this is simply a professional, satisfaction that we get doing this. We always wanted to do, as co-founders, when we started, we wanted to solve a societal problem through our knowledge and network and using some enterprise model. Here, a societal problem is getting the first job is immensely difficult, huge barriers, and for anyone. the theory of change is if someone gets the first job and then the person has access to income and social networks and support system, and upward mobility becomes a possibility. But as disadvantages, people are, it could be, not just persons with disabilities, people who are from LGBTQI community or from socioeconomically weaker backgrounds or rural disadvantaged. All of them and persons with disabilities have this huge barrier. So we thought this is the problem. Let's try to build a model and to see how we can bridge the opportunity gap for many people who have the talent and are unable to make it to what we see as employment, because employment, getting to work, is fundamental need of everyone. Chancellor called out, the Vice Chancellor called out right in the beginning that everyone has the needs of work for self-esteem and dignity is required. So for us, employment is the litmus test of inclusion. And as we built this organization, we were, the challenge that it threw at us was what inspiring and motivating for us to keep going. And the professional challenge, we are there entirely for the professional challenge that it gives. How do we create and change and influence organizations to attract talent, to give equal opportunity to talent, and then grow them as leaders, and then ultimately change the society's outlook towards them. That is entirely what motivates us, and nothing more than that. We are a team of 40. This is true not only for me, but all of us. So there's no personal story, etc. It is more about creating a change for people whom we seek to serve here.
Thank you so much, Raja. And I think people will continue to write their comments and queries as and when they see the webinar on the YouTube. And now we come to the end of the session. So I really thank you, very talented resource person, our own Mr. Rajashekharan, who agreed despite his busy schedule and having another talk just a few minutes ago, who agreed for this talk. I really thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Satish Kumar Bhandari, who gave this valuable time to us. I also thank our chairperson, Smita Madam, who helped to organize this and agreed to chair this session despite she being herself busy in the exam duty right now. I thank all our viewers who are watching us, and I request the viewers to click on the feedback link and submit their valuable feedback, and they'll get a certificate once they click the feedback, once they submit the feedback. I thank the IQAC team, the web team for making the arrangements. With this, we come to an end of the session. Signing off now. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks, Shipra. Thanks, Dr. Smita. Thank you.
In my room.